we've got a major storm developing for the weekend with massive nor'easter conditions here over parts of the East Coast. Tornadoes and flooding imminent soon over parts of Florida, Georgia, and the Carolina coastlines, with very heavy rainfall and flooding risks continuing up all the way to the northeast, even gusty winds. I've got the details on everything in this video.
One Nation Weather.
Alright, here's a look at your Friday evening satellite here, the big picture showing a low-pressure system over the plains. Overall not bringing too significant of impacts, but we've also got a subtropical kind of area of low pressure here that's going to make its way on off towards the northeast and eventually kind of meet up with that low-pressure system as it makes its way towards the Ohio Valley. Now, let's kind of play out the future precipitation radar here with the HRRR model, one of our more reliable, high-resolution near-term models. Again, you can see kind of in the big picture low-pressure system here over the plains as you make our way into the early morning hours of our Saturday. Some showers pushing through Missouri, through parts of Iowa, all the way back down into eastern Texas. There could be a little stripe of some snowfall there on the northern end of parts of the Dakotas, as well as Minnesota. That's not really the main story, though, here. Eventually, this low-pressure system over the northeastern Gulf is going to become the headliner as it makes its way up the east coast and is pretty much our first nor'easter here, real nor'easter of the winter season as it gets started here. Some showers pushing into the Midwest by mid-morning on Saturday, but again, the main topic is going to become that system in the northeastern Gulf. By the way, if you're new to the channel and you like my content, please hit subscribe for accurate and easy to understand forecasting. Now back to the radar with your future precipitation. Again, you can see that front over parts of the the central tier and the Midwest of the U.S. here around lunchtime here on your Saturday. Showers pretty much only impacting southern and eastern parts of Florida as we make our way through our Saturday afternoon. And this is just a look at the overall picture. We'll kind of dive into the nitty-gritty here in a second, but you can just see how kind of some of those showers in the tail end of that front interact with that system down there towards Florida. Now here's a look at your Saturday excessive rainfall outlook. It's level 2 in South Georgia as well as the Panhandle and through central and southern Florida. And then our severe weather outlook for our Saturday. This does include tornadoes and damaging winds. It's from places like Orlando, the Tampa Bay region, all the way on southward to the Keys. So definitely looking at a multi-hazard event here with gusty winds also on the table just overall, some 40, 50 mile per hour wind gusts out of this system. Here we go. This is around 3-4 a.m. on your Saturday morning. Some scattered showers and storms impacting parts of southern Florida, pushing east to west as that low-pressure system is drawing them on in as it's over parts of the northeastern Gulf at this point. You can see how heavy some of that rain is, right off that, the New Orleans coastline there on off towards the southeast by a couple hundred miles. But anyway, you can see we've got the continual rainfall bands, and embedded in this, we'll see some potential rotation here, kind of built in with a tropical-like system like what we're seeing here, because this is honestly a weaker subtropical storm, so to speak, here. And you can see some of those bands pushing east to west across parts of Florida here. Again, southern Florida seeing the best chance for severe weather and a spin-up weak tornado to be embedded. Notice here, I think as we go into the mid to late afternoon, that's when we could see a little bit more of a defined line get going here through parts of Orlando, stretching on back down through West Palm Beach. Those cells continue tracking east to west, and remember, when you kind of get all these cells in a formation like this, you could have one after another. So not only does that increase your flooding chance here over central parts of the state and southern parts of the state, but it also increases the chance for maybe a couple of tornado warnings to move over the same areas. So we'll be monitoring those smaller areas of rotation very closely. And then as we make our way into the evening hours here, we'll continue to see, this is 8-9 p.m. here on your Saturday. We'll see this low-pressure system approach the shorelines here, so just maybe 100 miles west of Tampa Bay at this point. Very heavy downpours pushing towards parts of Cape Coral, back down through Naples. Those tornadic potential bands here still continuing through parts of Orlando, back on down to Palm Bay. And then as we make our way, this is as we're going to head towards the midnight time frame and even a little bit thereafter, we'll see some of these cells continuing to impact the Panhandle of Florida, back on down through South Florida. So you get the point, pretty much the entirety of the state of Florida being impacted at this point. Also some scattered rainfall, at least some moderate rain, pushing on into parts of central Georgia, on up through South Carolina. At the same time. And remember, this is nighttime. We could still be seeing a tornado threat. And as that low pressure kind of lifts on up here over parts of northern Florida, that's when we could at least see kind of a final band here of some more discrete cells move over parts of Florida at the southern part at that. And that's where we could see a few more embedded tornadoes kind of to cap off the event there into our early Sunday morning. Meanwhile, it's just heavy rain and some gusty winds here. Very heavy rain at that possibly here over parts of eastern Georgia, South Carolina. I think some of this heavier rain will be more focused towards the coastline, where we could also see a low-end tornado threat kind of try to ride on up that Georgia, South Carolina, and especially over the Outer Banks there, since that jets out a little bit further into the Atlantic towards where more of those cells will be. But again, as we make our way towards Sunday afternoon, kind of heavy rainfall here over parts of the southeast with that as that low pressure system skims along the Carolina shorelines. Now, in terms of our rotating storm path here, this is the HRRR model. We're just kind of looking for Anything in the gray or the blue here on your screen is going to kind of indicate where we're getting a potential rotating storm. This is just with what the model indicated. There are those storms that move kind of southeast to northwest here earlier in the day on your Saturday. Those are the ones that could produce some tornadoes along the shorelines. But then again, as we go into our early Sunday morning, as that slight risk for severe weather and the flooding continues, by the way, we'll be looking at those cells moving southwest to northeast, and that's where we could at least briefly see a spin up, especially in the far southern part of the state. Now, with your further system timeline here, this is the NAM model. We've got a slight risk for flooding here up from parts of the Carolinas all the way on up into the mid-Atlantic shores here, the Delmarva areas there as well. This is as we go Sunday here, so that's where we're really going to have that flooding chance, and we'll also have the chance for some isolated severe weather along that shoreline. Again, I think this is actually a little bit more accurate for where the worst rainfall should be here. It should be right along that Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina coastline here as we make our way through the midday time frame here on your Sunday. Still some heavier rain into some inland zones, though. Again, that front that's moving here, where they can't forget that, moving out of the Midwest, that's going to kind of help to keep this along the East Coast. So overall here, we're looking at warmer than average here kind of being suctioned up ahead of that front. So in other words, we're not really looking at a snow potential for anyone here. Looking like a big mess of just some rain, some embedded heavier showers and thunderstorms pushing on up. Pretty much sub-severe in the way of thunderstorms here as this pushes towards Washington, D.C., the Philadelphia region as we make our way into our Sunday afternoon, as well as the evening time frame. By this point, with the low pressure system kind of centered over these areas, that's just going to bring those heavy rain bands continuing over and heading on up towards New England. But if we were to kind of look at where most of those severe storms would be with this system by this point, notice they're pretty much all offshore, well off the coast of North Carolina and Virginia. But we've got the showers continuing to make their way on up through the Cape Cod region. Remember, this is the hardest hit area from rainfall from that last winter storm just about 5 to 7 days ago. The soils are still kind of wet. Wouldn't be shocked if we saw some of our most treacherous flooding concerns into some of those areas. And then eventually we'll kind of get a northwest flow bringing in some slightly cooler than average air here over the eastern United States behind this. Now let's kind of time out those wind gusts here with this system. Can't forget those either. 40, 50 mile per hour wind gusts in the northeastern Gulf of Mexico as we made our way through the day today. As we make our way into our Saturday, that's when we're going to begin to see some of these gusts pick up over parts of Florida itself. Here we go into the afternoon hours of our Saturday. This is Saturday around 6, 7 p.m. Look at this. Some of these reds indicating, 30 to 45 mile per hour wind gusts pretty much over the entirety of the state, excluding the western panhandle. So even if you're not seeing any sort of, potentially scattered tornadic storm or a damaging wind event there in a storm, we're looking at least some, consistent 30 to 40 mile per hour wind gusts. Over parts of the northern part of Florida, right around the Jacksonville region through Gainesville, we could see some areas as well as back down towards Orlando. That's kind of where the low pressure center is going to cross over the state. Wouldn't be shocked if we saw some brief 50 to 60 mile per hour wind gusts out of the system there. And then again, those wind gusts look to be dragging along that coastline here. So from places like Atlanta to Charlotte, mainly southeastward of those areas, that's where the wind gusts should be the strongest, anywhere from around 30 to 50 miles per hour there. But right along the Outer Banks here, that immediate North Carolina, the Myrtle Beach shoreline there of South Carolina, we could see some 50 to 60 mile per hour wind gusts also right over some of those areas. So some very, pretty much tropical storm conditions here, especially when you get that heavy rain in the mix. So treat this as though it is a little bit of a tropical storm, so to speak here. We continue to see this push on up towards Virginia Beach. This moves into parts of New Jersey, Long Island, as well as parts of New York here into the afternoon and evening hours of our Saturday. And into our Sunday, this is our Sunday. Then as we go early on Monday, we continue to see that push on up through the northeast with some 50 to 70 mile per hour gusts skimming some of the shoreline zones. So anyway, let's look at the rainfall forecast here. We've got totals anywhere from around 1 inch to 3 inches of rain for most communities here through parts of the eastern part of Florida, as well as on up through Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina. Looks like some spots here right along the South Carolina and North Carolina shorelines here could pick up maybe 4 inches of rainfall. So that'll be really interesting to see if we could get some 4 to 6 inch totals there. That red stripe continues on up through the mid-Atlantic, pretty much right along the shores here. If you're east of Appalachia, expect at least 1 inch of rain. But we've got those 2 to 4 inch totals continuing through parts of Maryland. You can see the 2.5s and the 2.6s all the way on up from Virginia and into Pennsylvania. And then kind of looking a little bit further northeast from there. Again, here we go again at totals anywhere from 2 to 4 inches moving through New York City. We've got Hartford, Connecticut, western Mass all the way on up through southern Maine. But again, that area I just circled on your screen right here, I would be monitoring for a kind of an increased flood threat in that area just because of how heavy the rain was with that last winter storm. Now, your NAM model snowfall forecast, this is piddly, everyone. Not much to see in the way of snowfall, just some wraparound bands hitting parts of the West Virginia higher elevations there and the slopes there. So maybe if you got a ski resort in southeastern West Virginia, you might get a quick, 6 to 8 inches of snow. Unless you're right off the lakes or in that area, you're pretty much seeing nothing out of this storm. So have to see if we can get a white Christmas from something else if that's what you want. But my impact zones map, this is again just the main impact you're going to see. Not to say you couldn't see wind in some of the green zones. Highest winds, though, they're going to be on off towards the north and east right along the shorelines. The storm risks, the severe weather risk, will be kind of as this initializes through Florida, Georgia, into the Carolina coast, and then floods and rainfall will kind of be moving pretty much right along and parallel to Appalachia, but on the east side of those mountains there, through the Carolinas, through the Mid-Atlantic, and into parts of the Northeast. Last thing I wanted to show you is kind of the pattern that's going to settle on in behind this. Again, you can kind of see this is the mid-level pattern, blues indicating some low pressure, reds indicating some high pressure. Overall, just unsettled over the east as we make our way into our Monday afternoon. Meanwhile, we've got an area of high pressure that's going to be sitting here over the Four Corners region and kind of encroaching on that and pushing in behind it. Again, you can see how that nor'easter system kind of briefly strengthens, but by our Tuesday, we're beginning to see that fall apart. We've got high pressure now beginning to take hold of the central United States, bringing much warmer than average conditions that don't look like they'll be leaving anytime soon, even by Christmas. Low pressure systems might be trying to push into parts of the California coastline here by the time we go towards the 19th to 20th of December, bringing some heavy rainfall and gusty wind conditions there. And I think something that originates there could be what pushes over parts of the central part of the country, unfortunately in time for Christmas from there. So we'll be monitoring that. But that's all I got for this weather video. I will not be able to make a video tomorrow, but hopefully I'll have one out on Sunday afternoon for you here with the latest information. But hopefully this covered everything you needed to know. Have a great day, and don't forget to subscribe if you're not already.
One nation weather.